Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Chat with Ike. Today, we'll be talking about fulfillment, and I have with me here one of my special mentors, Mr. Osinoiki, the Chief Responsibility Officer for the Just Leadership Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
So, Osinoiki, currently I'm the Chief Responsibility Officer of Just Leadership Academy, a coaching and mentoring organization, and Just Leadership Limited, I'm one of the directors at that. It's a consulting organization in the area that I specialize in, which is people technology. And kind of my career spans about 30 years of starting off as a civil engineering graduate and finishing off in the corporate world as the Vice President of People Technology for an organization that had about 85 businesses in 101 countries around the world. And I've kind of experienced different levels of leadership within the organization up to the board level, and today I currently sit as a non-executive director in about 6 startups around the world, particularly focused in Africa. I have about 16,000 people on LinkedIn because I believe that your network is equivalent to your net worth, and those 16,000 people have come from different jobs that I've done over time and relationships, and that's kind of given me a broad network to kind of draw on and call upon. I love the workplace, and I think it's a great place to see a level of fulfillment, so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. As part of our work here on the Chat with Ike team, we ran a series of polls on social media around the topic of fulfillment. We x-rayed a number of quotes from notable people, including Albert Einstein, and got people to either agree or disagree with what the quote said about fulfillment. And while we had almost perfect agreement on many of the quotes, one quote where we had a divergence and a disparity in terms of certain people agreeing and others disagreeing was a quote on fulfillment and work. That quote said, and I paraphrase, that most people derive fulfillment from the work they do or derive fulfillment from their jobs. And 80% of the respondents said they did not agree with that quote, while 20% said they agreed with that quote. So it made us think that we may need to talk about fulfillment and how that interplays with work. For me, I define fulfillment as just living a good life, being able to look back at any portion of your life and say, oh, that was good, oh, that was impactful, oh, I'm happy I went through that. So that brings me to my first question to you, sir. What is fulfillment to you?
And I think I just want to make a quick comment on your poll, which is that concept of defining work. Mm-hmm. Because I think how people define work and what people hear when they hear the word work could have resulted in your 80%. Mm-hmm. Because actually most of what we do in life, whether you're paid to do it or you're not paid to do it, is a level of work, whether it's a volunteer. Like, some people always say that, a mom at home, a stay-at-home mom, is still working, right? Because if she wasn't there, you'll have to employ people who work as nannies or who work as cooks or who work as cleaners to kind of fulfill that role. And it could be that a husband stays at home. It doesn't really matter. The reality is that there is a level of work involved. So our whole life is involved around work. And I think when people hear that word work, they just think of paid work. Mm-hmm. And I think actually when you look at the concept of fulfillment and linking it to work, it is really about achieving goals. And our whole body, our body is kind of designed in a way to recognize when you succeed and fulfill goals. I don't know all the biological terms for it, but there are things like serotonin, oxytocin, that, when they come, and dopamine, like, the whole idea around that we're now an internet generation, that we get our dopamine fulfillment by getting a like. Because there's something in your body, the chemicals in your body recognizes, hey, you've achieved something, you got a like. Now, in the olden days, for our forefathers, that like was more like you hunted down an animal and you have food to take home. So I think the whole concept of work is intertwined with fulfillment, because work gives you the concept of having a goal and having a purpose. Mm-hmm. And when you fulfill those goals or you fulfill that purpose, you have fulfillment.
Right. Thank you so much. So fulfillment occurs in the context of purpose and set goals. Mm-hmm. So where purpose and set goals exist, then there's a journey towards fulfillment. And that means that where purpose and set goals do not exist, then there may be a question as to how fulfillment is attained or how fulfillment is designed. So that brings me to the next question. In addition to purpose and goals, what are the other components of life that could lead to fulfillment?
I think impact is very important. So whether you are working to make sure the environment is better, there's an impact you're trying to drive. Whether you're investing in other people. So one of the most fulfilling roles, and maybe underpaid roles, is a teacher. And their fulfillment comes from investing in other people and see other people rise. And there's this quote that's going around with the millennial generation, which is, we rise by raising others. And I think the whole concept of fulfillment is around impact. And we don't want to use the word purpose and goals for this next section, but impact, achievement are all linked together to give you that sense of fulfillment.
So impact and achievement, pretty much living beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Doing something for yourself that ultimately benefits the other person, that ultimately benefits the world beyond you. We've talked about fulfillment and how that can play out in the workplace. For you as a professional who's lived through a 3-decade-long career life, what would you say has been the most fulfilling experience of your career life?
I think for me, the most fulfilling has been watching other people rise. Like investing in other people, coaching other people, mentoring other people has been one of the most fulfilling aspects of my life. And if you pushed me and said, what's been the most fulfilling role I've done? I think I worked for a startup called Deliveroo. It's a food delivery company. And when I was working there, it's like 10 years ago, so I was quite old compared to the people I was working with. And everybody in my team was under 28. My head of tech was under 28, my head of admin was under 28, my head of global mobility was under 28. And to just watch these younger generation just thrive was one of the most fulfilling experiences of my working career. Because I could see that just by creating an environment for them to do well, for them to have a sense of fulfillment, for them to have a sense of purpose and to achieve goals, made them happy and made me happy. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a dual thing, that the more I gave them space and capacity to achieve something, the more I was feeling fulfilled. So I think that would be one of the things I would say, in my career, that particular almost 2 years in my career was one of the most fulfilling times of my career. And that's because it's wrapped around investing in others and having an impact on the organization.
Wow. No, that's profound. And then now, what role does God play in fulfillment for our lives?
I think no matter what faith you stand on, I'm a Christian, so I stand by the Christian faith and the Bible. And the Bible makes you to understand that all things were created for God, for His pleasure. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, the scripture that I would always go to when it comes to work is the Bible encourages us to do all things as unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so that is seeing God as your ultimate boss, seeing God as your CEO. I read a book a couple of years ago, almost 20 years ago, called Jesus CEO. And that book really helped me understand that actually, no matter who I work for, even if I'm working for myself, I'm ultimately responsible to God. God is the overseer, general overseer of all companies, whether it's Apple, whether it's Microsoft, doesn't matter who's at the helm of it. Ultimately, when you're working for those organizations, you must see that you're working for God. And so when you recognize that God is the ultimate person that you're looking to, you kind of have a different mindset. So if you think that, I'm cleaning the toilet, but I'm cleaning the toilets that belong to God. I'm cleaning the toilets because this is going to help God. It changes your mindset and your perspective. It changes even your sense of fulfillment, because now it doesn't matter how much you get paid. Your real payment is the fact that you're doing what is pleasing to God. So I think God, having a God-centered universe, having a God-centered purpose is very, very important, and more so in the world that we live today.
Right. So John 10 verse 10 says that the enemy or the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But Jesus came that we may have life and have it abundantly. And that's how I picture fulfillment. Living to a point where your life now overflows with the abundance of God's blessing upon your life. The next question I have is, there's someone listening that may just be dissatisfied at work with whatever they are doing, feels that they have greater potential, feels like they can do more, feels like they can even earn more. What do you say to that person as to how he or she can navigate the process from where they are now, a sense of discontent, a sense of not feeling at their best, to a point where they can look back and say, okay, now I am in the realm of fulfillment?
That's a very loaded question, but I'll try and unpack it for you. So I think it starts with, why are you there? Right? Understanding why are you there? Why are you in that organization? Because sometimes we're working because we're just marking time because we're finishing a degree, or we're working because we have to work because we're waiting for our partner to do something, then we're going to go into business. So understanding your purpose is the beginning of understanding fulfillment in the workplace. So if you don't know why you're there, I think it's going to be very hard for you to get fulfillment. So that's number one. Understand why you're there. Number two, have mentors and coaches around you that can help you navigate the maze of work. Because the reality is that we all go into work, and the reality that you can be doing the same thing for 20 years. And most organizations will let you do that if that's what you want to do. Because if that's all you want to fulfill in life, you want to just keep doing the same thing. You know, in the olden days, before the Industrial Revolution, people did the same thing every day, 9 to 5, every day, clock in, clock out. You know, they stir their tea in the same way. And I'm not joking about that. I work with a guy who would stir his tea the same way he has done it for 20 years in the same office that he's worked in, right? And so that was his routine, and he was happy and content, right? That's another word we can introduce into this conversation. So I think the first thing is, like, understand why you're in the organization. Number two, find mentors and coaches around you to help you navigate the maze that is work. And then the third thing is, make sure you set goals and have a purpose in the workplace. Because even if your company doesn't require you to have a goal, for you as a human being, your body demands that you have a goal. Why can people run a marathon? Because they tell their brain, I'm going to run a marathon. It's not quote unquote natural. You don't wake up every morning and run a marathon, but you train your body, you coach your body, you speak to your body, and guess what? You can run a marathon. No matter how healthy or unhealthy you feel, if you talk to your body will push you. You might not finish it in record time, but you will finish it because your body will agree with you. So having a purpose and having an understanding of where you're going directionally will be helpful for you to get a fulfillment. And then ultimately, maybe the last bit of it is, what rewards do you expect? Because not everybody is looking for a pay rise. They're just looking for fulfillment. That's what we hear now from the millennials. We're not just looking for, hey, money. We're also looking for fulfillment. And what does that mean? That means we also want to feel that we're adding value. So maybe let's add that new word to it. So we have impact, purpose, goals. Value is another piece. That do you feel that your life is adding value, and what you're doing adds value? And that's why there's a lot of things around ethical clothing, ethical food, because we feel that if it's ethical, it's adding value.
Thank you so much. So basically, you deserve a fulfilled life. You deserve to feel fulfilled. Fulfillment is something you can attain, and there's a way to get to it. The pathway starts with understanding purpose, setting clear goals, identifying areas where you can derive support, including from mentorship, to enable you keep track towards that process, but also being grateful and looking back and living beyond yourself, trying to ensure that your life impacts others. So we'll stop it at this point today. Fulfillment is possible, and you can get to fulfillment. One short pathway is doing it with God and understanding that God is interested in every aspect of your life. As always, I'd love to talk to you about this. I'd like to chat with you about this. I'd love to help you through your fulfillment journey, and just leave a comment, send an email, and we'll be glad to work with you and to actually learn from you. So thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. And thank you. See you on the next one. God bless you.
Live a fulfilled life.
Yes, live a fulfilled life, people. All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Take two was better.
Yeah. Thank you.